All right. So now, all right. So now we're unmuted. Hopefully everything's recording properly. Um, so yeah, guys, it's John from Mythology, and I'm here today because we're going to show off um, the latest features of our platform, ELYSIUM. ELYSIUM is a no-code application for basically world building from your mobile device. Augmented reality, interactive, and immersive worlds at real-world locations. That's geolocated and persistent. I'm going to do that one more time. So yeah, so we're going to be showing off the latest features of ELYSIUM, our no-code platform for geolocated and persistent augmented reality world building. We're entering our private beta right now, so there's a lot of new features that we've been working on diligently, and so the intention is to just run through everything, get you guys started from zero, and start building this experience, and hopefully, if you have questions, we'll be able to answer them at the end of the session. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to dive right into it. If you have any questions, feel free to just comment in the chat, and Oriane, who will be moderating, she'll relay the questions to me. We're actually at a building out in Montreal right now, and we're going to try a bunch of different things. We're out there in the real world building in the real world. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Here we go. All right. So does everybody see my screen? All right, so first of all, ELYSIUM is a mobile app. Our platform right now is designed for mobile, for iOS. We're hoping to release the Android version within the next month. Right now, everything is in private beta, so you will need to sign up to gain access through our test flight. Right now, what that looks like is if you go to test flight and you've signed up through our website, elysium.ar, it'll show up on your test flight and you'll be able to open the app, download and open the app. So right now, when you download the app, it looks like this. So there's two parts to ELYSIUM. ELYSIUM is both a distribution platform and a creation tool. So we've made it so that it's easy to kind of create something, publish it, and immediately somebody can discover what you've created. On this web page, when you first download the app, you're presented just a map. And on this map are various locations that have been published that you can then see around you. So this is a scene that was previously published, and you can select it, right? Highlight it, and here see what it's all about, have some descriptions, and see some images and whatnot. So this is just a way for you to discover what there is to see. And then the idea here is that you can then tap on it and enter that scene. But before we do that, we're going to create a whole new scene. And to do that, you need to create an account. So we go back, tapping on this button in the bottom left, we go back to login. On the login page, if you haven't created an account, you'll need to sign up. So if we toggle between explore and play, we go back to the play mode on the other page. But if we go to login, we can go back to the login page. So I've already created an account, so I don't need to. But if you need to, you'd need to sign up for an account. Then you'll get access to the creation tools. So this is, I enter my email password. We'll also be supporting single sign-on probably in the next build. And that's something that we're excited to see in the future. Okay, once you're logged in, there's three main panels. We're going to go through them one at a time. The first one is your worlds. When you first come in, this is all going to be empty. You can think of a world as a digital layer on the entire globe. So if the analogy I often use is that it's like a website. The world is your website domain. It's a container for all the experiences. On itself, it's just a metadata container. So if we create a new world, you get to select a cover image, you can add a title and a description, and then that's all you need to do to create a world. So we're not going to do that because I've already created one for today called the Speedrun Demo. So I can select it once I've created it, and if I edit the meta here, once again, it allows me to change change the description and the title and so forth by tapping on here. Hello, for example, right? And I can say, I can also publish it or delete the world itself. And tap away from the window, and it'll just close that window. You'll notice that there's a little bit, some UX quirks and things that we need to work out, but we're in beta, and that's kind of where we want some feedback from you and our creator community. So this main panel here, this is what we call our scene navigation page. We can then go into the world, and then this is how we see all of the scenes that are in that world. Now, the way that our system works, you can think about it as the world. If the world is the URL, the scenes are like your web pages. So you define localized scenes, these little squares here, and the idea is that within those scenes, there's content to be consumed, right? So the principle is that people have to be within the confines of this geomap space, basically this geofenced region, to be able to enter that experience. So now, right now, for example, on our GPS, it says that we're outside of that front entrance area. So I wouldn't be able to go and actually see that. So we do have an override. So if you select here, it's whited out, but if you tap on the button, you can try anyway, and you can go into the experience. It's just that as you'll see later on, there won't be any content, because you still need to find specific, what we call, markers in that space. I'm going into too much detail right now, but before we do that, we're also going to go into our content library panel. So this is a personal, essentially your Google Drive for all the assets that belong to you, right? Once again, when you first enter, create a new account, this is going to be empty, right? So you're going to have to fill it with content. So this content can be from, a bunch of other platforms. We often use things like Sketchfab. In general, we support any kind of media, but specific formats. For 3D assets, we support GLTFs in the form of GLBs, and then for audio, we support MP3s. For images, we support JPEGs, PNGs with transparency, GIFs, animated GIFs. For video, it has to be encoded as H.264 with the MP4 extension. And once you can add things into your library by tapping on this button at the top. And then this basically allows you to upload things assets that are already on your computer. So you can select from either your file system, right? So if I can add here, and add this white flower GLB, I can preview that here. I can add the author. I can add the attribution model. So a lot of this content, tags if I want to, and I can just upload it. I can say what the license is, and then upload the asset, and it's going to go into my library. Likewise, I can choose things from my photo gallery, from my photo app, and by tapping that button that switches, and then I can pick an image from there, right? So that's the image I just took this morning. Go through the permissions, and then it's going to upload it to our cloud. So basically, you have an account on our cloud that then has all of these assets available to you, right? And you'll notice that when I select an asset to preview it, it'll download it from the cloud, and that's makes it more efficient for us to use these assets when we're creating a scene. Now, there's also this other part here, the collections tab on this page, which is a library of public assets. So you can go and going into any of these libraries and go into this library, and you can select things from this library that you want to add to your own library. So for example, if I want to add this animated robot, right? I can preview what it looks like, and then I copy it to my library. Then I can then use it in any scenes I see fit. Poly Pizza is a partner of ours, and they basically took over Google Poly, so all of their assets are free to use, and you can add them to any scenes you like. Eventually, this will be a marketplace. Well, we envision where creators that create their own assets can then present them, maybe monetize their work by allowing people to buy their collections, buying specific assets that then people can use in their scenes as they like. So you can try and play around with this. We have like our own personal collection of things that we think are super cool. Most of these are downloaded from Sketchfab or things that we've created on our own. So for example, the skull, I believe it's already in my library, so I don't need to re-download it. But this is a way to just preview what it looks like. And once again, if you want to use it, add it to your library, and then it shows up. So now if we go back to our library, here's the animated robot. I can then preview what it looks like, right? And we'll use this in the scene that we create. Okay, so key things to remember. You can upload things from your device only at the moment. The one thing that we're working on in the near future is a web interface where you'll have basically essentially your Google Drive. You know, you'll have a dashboard. You'll be able to drag and drop things from a web interface into this collection. Once you have something in this asset library, you can then use it in your scene. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to create a scene. We're going to go into our world once again, right? I've already created a scene, but we'll visit that scene a little bit later. We're going to create a scene from scratch. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to either pull up this tab from the bottom. I can tap on here to create a new scene. We can likewise tap on this button at the side. There's the black circle plus button and create a scene from there. So we're going to do that. And what's going to do is going to show off where we are in the world. Right now I'm operating off of Wi-Fi inside a building that's just glass and brick and metal. So the GPS is horrible. But what's nice about this interface is that we see it with that how that is. So what we need to do is create a scene that basically makes sure that we are within the bounds of the scene. So what we're going to do is all you got to do is just tap on screen. We're going to create a perimeter for this scene and kind of shape it the way we want. And the use case is that we just want to make sure that the center of our circle, our GPS circle, is inside of this. It's okay if parts of it are outside, but you want the center to be within the bounds of the geofence that you create. And so when you're okay with that, just say I don't like the shape, I can start over. Right? And I can create a scene like this, right? And then what I can do is, okay, when I feel like it's good, I can just tap on create scene. And the scene is going to be created as you see. From here, what we can do is then edit the scene, right? So now we have two scenes in this demo. We have the entrance, and then we have the other untitled location. So we're going to change the title here. So we're going to go edit scene settings. This is the scene settings panel. I can then tap on the scene title and change it to inside Alcan building. Add a description and an address, right? So 188 Sherbrooke West, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, right? Description, we just enter whatever, right? The description, so all this metadata will generate a web page, automatic web page when we publish the scene. So this is what the metadata is being used for. Here, so we were in general, so that's the general settings. We can also add a cover. So let's just add this image here, right? So the cover is going to be representative of what the scene is. It's going to be the image that's being put on the website. We also have thumbnails. Thumbnails are what you can use to put together a gallery. So we can select multiple images and then add them. And then, we'll see where this stuff shows up a little bit later. Stats, eventually what we're going to do is we're going to build up an analytics suite that allows you to track how many people come into the scene, what people have interacted with, and so forth. So this is something that's in our phase 2. Hopefully by the beginning of next year, we'll have something available here. Finally, under visibility, we see our scene. You'll see that the world itself is in draft mode and the scene hasn't been published. So the rule for discoverability, for something to be discovered on the public side of things, is that the world needs to be published and then the specific scene needs to be published as well. So we tap published, right? You'll see now that the scene is now published and we can make the world public. then it's going to be discoverable by anybody that has it. So normally you don't want to do this. You want to unpublish the scene. The web, the world can be published because you might have other scenes that are published and you don't want to affect those. But the scene that we're working on, because it's not ready, we don't want to publish that just yet. So we set that to be unpublished for now. Instructions. Now this is an HTML page where that we can create basically a panel that's being presented to the visitor before they enter AR. So, this is a page where we can add images, text to describe what people should be expecting to experience when they come to the scene. Maybe instructions on what they should be doing, for example. So we've left this kind of open-ended so that this way, as a creator, you can decide, how to describe what people should be seeing in that space. Whether it's a game experience or just an art piece experience. So we can add an example here, right, and save that. So now this is something that's going to be presented to users when they go into the space and see what's going to, what they expect. Markers, we don't have any markers yet, but eventually this is something we'll go back to a little bit later on. Backup and restore. When we create a scene, we can, in the app, create backups, and they'll allow you to download things onto your mobile device. So essentially, this is a way to save versions, if you like, and kind of restore and create backups and whatnot. Wipe. Say if you want to delete this content from the scene, you can do that. We have two options: whether you can wipe all the content, which includes all the markers that you create, or you can just wipe the assets. This will become a little bit more clear once we start creating the scene, which is what we'll do now. Okay, so we created the scene. It's basically just an empty zone. What we're going to start doing now is start creating assets within that scene, creating experiences. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into the scene by pressing on this green button. And right now we're in AR. So the first thing you need to do is basically choose a feature of the environment that is pretty much permanent. It won't move. It's always going to be in the same location to anchor your experience. So we're going to tap on this button at the bottom, says new marker, and the little square appears, and you'll see that it detects surfaces and it'll go along certain surfaces. So our mapping system basically will take a photo of the environment and use that as a point of reference for future experiences. So we can change the size of this with 2 fingers. I can change the size of the square. Let's choose this, for example. And what it's done is it's taken a picture and used that as a marker. You'll see that a circle appears, and if I'm outside the circle, it's blue. If I'm inside, it's green. This is what we call a node. So if we go back to the website analogy, we have the world as your URL, the scene as your web page, and then the node is essentially a section on the web page. You can have an infinite number of nodes. In the same way you can have an infinite number of scenes per world, you can have an infinite number of nodes per scene. So this is a way that we've structured our experiences. And right now we're in creation mode, so now I can tap on, you'll see like these other tabs at the bottom here. They all do different things, and we'll run through them a little bit later, but there's marker, so you can remove this marker. Well, and it bugged out. But now what we can do is we go back inside. So the marker deletion function doesn't work, obviously. But at this point, what we can do is add new markers. We can remove, the idea is that we can also remove markers, which obviously doesn't work in this version. But we can add additional markers later on. The assets is where you do most of the magic, is where we go back into our library. By tapping on the add asset button, we open and close the sidebar, which allows us to view our library. So same view as before. All the assets that we had available to us show up. And from here, what we can do is select things that we can place in the world. So if we go back and find, for example, the skull, right? If I tap on the skull, what I now have is a little a cursor that detects surfaces, right? So now we can place something in the world and attach it to a surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the ground next to the marker. I'm going to tap on the screen. And what it's going to do is it's going to download it from the cloud, and it makes it appear in the world. I can select it, and with 2 fingers, I can change the size, scaling. I can move it laterally with 1 finger along the surface. And you'll see that half of it's actually in the ground because the center point for this object is inside the skull. So what I can do is double select it with 1 tap, and then with 2 fingers, move it off the surface, off the plane that it's attached to, and you'll be allowed to move it vertically. Right, so I'm going to put it there right now. And so right now, that's how you add 1 asset to the scene. And by selecting it, I can tap it again, and I can move it to another location. If I rotate my fingers, right, with 2 fingers, I can change the rotation. And we also have this little widget at the bottom. Select the asset, and it's basically like a trackball. Allows me to kind of control the orientation quite easily, quite intuitively. If I tap on the outside ring of it, I can rotate this, and this rotation is always done in function of where I am in the space. So I look at that object differently. I can rotate it in this way. If I look at it straight up, it will rotate it in this direction, right? So this is something that we can do quite easily, and the intention here is to make it placing and organizing things in a scene intuitive by forcing you to move around. Okay, so let's add 1 more asset here, and then we can move on to another scene. Let's add this heart. So we'll add a living heart. Let's again select it, make it bigger. So one thing about this asset, this 3D asset, is that it has animations. By default, when things are placed in the scene, they won't play the animation. So now what we can do is select this element and tap on the button at the top right. This is basically your object settings panel. And what you can do is select a bunch of different parameters. Initial visibility means, remember, we're actually in the creation mode. If we were on a player mode, people wouldn't see these lines and so forth. So we can set the initial visibility when somebody enters a scene, whether that object is available or not for somebody to see, if it's hidden or not. So we can set this to be hidden, for example, right? And then what we have is a scale. So this is rather than using the 2 fingers to set the scale, you can set this directly here. Let's set this to be 600% of its object size. There we go. And by tapping away, it saves it. If an object, if a GLB has animations, we have an ability to set the initial animation. So right now it's not playing any animation, it's at null. But if we set the animations, skeleton 0, whatever the animation name is, and we save it, we can get the heart to start beating, for example. All right, so let's change that back to 0 animations for now. And then the last thing you'll notice here is something called event radius. Second to last thing you'll notice is event radius. Now this is something that you can change, and you'll notice that the circle below the asset changes in size. This is basically interaction range. Right now our system, and I'll go through this interactivity later on the next part, is that we can interact with assets right now through multiple triggers. And one of the triggers is walking into the elements. So this perimeter basically just sets the sensitivity level of that trigger, how sensitive it is to our proximity to the element. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. We'll test that out in a little bit. And the last thing here is portals. So this is more of an advanced feature where we can create portals for assets. I'm not really going to go into that today because this is something a little bit more advanced and will probably require a whole other thing. but it basically allows you to set certain assets to be a portal window, and then other assets to be inside certain portals. And then when you set these portals, the concept is that if you can only see those things inside a portal through an object that is declared to be a portal window. It has some particular use case scenarios that we'll be happy to show in another video. But right now, all we're going to do is we'll leave things as is. Once again, we'll set the animation to 0, save that, and come back here. All right, so we've placed two assets, and now if you select it again, you'll see that it has perimeter. We have these circles, and basically what we can do is if we tap on preview, this is what a user sees, right? You can walk around. There's no more indications or UI elements. It's very just what you see is what you get. What we need to do now is right now there's no interactions in the scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into what we call our GEIST engine. And then this is where we start adding interesting animations. So first one, we're going to take the heart and we're going to make it beat once we approach it. So we're going to set a trigger. A trigger can be on trace value. Once again, traces are another level that we can talk about at the end. Object leave, so that's like I'm already in the asset and I leave it, can be a triggering asset element. Object approach is when I approach the object. Once again, depending on that perimeter. Node enter is when we detect the marker on the ground. And then on user tap. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to add an interaction where we approach the heart. And we're going to then, on the bottom, we have a whole bunch of different things that we can do. We have the ability to open a web page. We can add a ping and pong messages to HTML servers, so web servers. We can make it say something. We can do a text to speech. We can, if somebody's viewing this on the phone, we can make a phone vibrate. We can animate something else that's in the scene. Right now, we're going to animate the heart, for example. So we're just saying on object approach, animate the heart and play all animation skeleton. So we're going to add that behavior. Right? So now what we're going to do is, once again, in creation mode, you're not going to activate things. You have to go into preview mode. So now that we're in preview mode, this is what a user is going to see. Now what we're going to do is if we walk into the heart, and notice that it starts beating, right? So now it's going to continue to beat until, well, we haven't created a way to stop it yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that next. We're going to say new behavior. We're going to say on user tap. Once again, control the playback of the heart. I'm going to set the animation back to 0, and then I'm going to add this behavior. If you go to the top right, you can see all the list of behaviors. Stop, start, the context and what it's going to do. And we can go back here. And now if we go back to preview, I want to make the heart stop. I'm just going to tap on it. It's just going to pause the animation where it was. Okay, so once again, if I want to make it work again, I'm going to walk into it, beating, I'm going to tap on it to make it stop. So that's the basic premise of the GEIST engine, and you can add multiple animations and multiple effects. Once again, so we got stopped at the animate element. Oh, crashed. It might be crash. I think this is crashing because of we're also live streaming at the same time. So now if we go back to the scene, right? So now you notice the GPS is kind of going crazy. We're way off. But once again, if we want to go into the scene, we know we're on location. We can select it. We're not going to wait for it to. We're not going to wait for it to calibrate. We're just going to go and say we're going to try to enter the scene anyway. It's going to launch it. And so we have to recognize the marker that we created. Right? It's going to recognize the location and generate the assets again. Oh yeah, right. Because we set the heart isn't there anymore because we set it to be hidden on on initialization. So what we're going to do is actually create an interaction with the skull that makes the heart appear. So I'm going to say on user tap, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say make the heart appear and give it an animation, a grow animation. I'm going to add this behavior. Okay, so before we continue on, let's go back to the GEIST engine, and we'll see all the other kinds of animations we can have. So we have traces, which is our point system. So this is giving us a bug. I'm tapping on the top right button here. It takes us to, centers us in the map. Right, discover the skull again. So now if you go into preview, we've added the interaction. I can tap on the skull. It's going to make the heart appear. Right, the heart's animated. I can tap on it to stop it. And then I can also go back and walk into it, and it's going to start moving again. So let's go back to selecting this and go into GEIST and finish going over all of the possible interactions. So ELYSIUM hardware is a way that we use WebSockets to connect to IoT devices, so you can control lights or whatever, physical environments with this protocol. We can hide assets, make things appear, as you saw with the heart. We can then also hide things by adding other behaviors. So right now, if I say on object approach for the skull, I'm going to grow. I'm going to make the heart hide the heart and add that behavior to the skull. Finally, we have alerts. So this is a way to have a quick text box appear. We can also play back audio and select audio from your library. And finally, I believe, yes, the WebSockets. This is once again a protocol that we can use to connect to IoT devices. So those are all of the triggers and actions that we support in our GEIST interaction system. This is something that we'll continue to develop as we go, but right now we feel like there's a lot already for us to get started. So right now, going back to world building, so we've created a single scene and we created a node. I'm going to go to another location within the scene now and create a second node. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk all the way over here. So as you see, we're in a busy location with lots of people. And once again, the idea is to create an experience that is geolocated. So, our principle is that, if you're creating an experience for a location, you should see what it looks like in that location. So with our system, the idea is that you're creating in situ, and there's no testing. You're testing as you go. You're seeing what works and what doesn't, and adjusting as you create. So right now we're going to create a new marker. We're going to use this image here. I'm just going to take a picture of it. Right? And you'll notice that it's just a circle. The node isn't there. Because right now the system still thinks that we're in the first node is active. I still have to activate so that the system knows where I am. So I'm going to activate this node by going inside of it. And now you'll see that it's been activated. I can then, whatever I create now will be associated to this node. Prior to this, anything I add to the scene will be associated to the first node that I had previously created. So now I'm going to add an asset. Let's add something a little bit different. Let's see if I can find my favorite robot here. Add the robot to the scene, right? Change the size. This guy has an animation, so I'm going to say let's give it a running. So you'll see this GLB, this robot, has multiple animations. Like the idea here is with the GEIST engine, you can pick what interactions deliver specific animations as you like. So I'm going to say save, and it's going to go start running right away. So when it appears, when I go to this location, it'll already be running. And you'll notice here on the ground, there's a bunch of dots that connects us with the previous month. You see the assets right now. You actually see the heart from over here. Let's see here. Yeah, it's a function of the glass, I believe. But the idea here is that the nodes you create are always going to be linked to each other. And so this is what we call pathfinding. So what you can do is connect an infinite number of nodes together. And by default, our system displays all the content from the currently active node. So right now, the node that's active is node 2. So this is the node we just created. So any nodes, any content that's related to this node will be rendered, and all the content from nodes that are immediately attached to this node will also be rendered. So that's why you see the heart, for example. Our rule is such that things that are further than that, so nodes, content that are in nodes that are non-adjacent to the one that's currently active will not be rendered and displayed. So in this way, we're able to, essentially have an experience that is, infinite. We can also create nodes that have branches. Instead of having just a singular experience, a singular path, we can have branching paths. And what that leads to is the ability to tell almost like a choose your own adventure type of experience. Once again, the way that we activate specific nodes is by walking into them, right? So once this node is active, I can then create another marker somewhere else. I can walk over here. Let's go to this location, right? I'm going to create a new marker. I'm going to pick this. So certain elements don't work so well. So one thing you need to consider when you're creating markers is lighting. If the lighting changes or an element is super reflective, it may not be the best marker. But what we can do is use this, for example, marker. So lighting is pretty much stable, right? It's not going to change much. It's very clear, high contrast. That makes a good marker. And as you see, we can see the link to the other page and other node, the second node, and continuing onward. So let's add something here. We're going to add something a little bit different, maybe. Add a house plant. Right, make it big. That's it. Now I'm going to show you the function where we can have branching nodes. So right now, the node that was last active was node 3. We're going to go back to node 2. Selected. Right, so now the system knows that we're activating node 2. We're going to a different location. And we're going to create another marker here. We're going to create a new marker. Right? And one thing that you guys have probably noticed by now is that we support both vertical and horizontal marker placement. So now if we go back to node 2, right, you'll notice that there's linking, there's 2 paths. There's one that goes to the one location, the first location, and then the fourth one. Okay, so that's the basis of generating these interactive worlds. And because we only see elements in the node that's active and the ones that are adjacent, it's a way to sequence your experiences. So right now, one thing we haven't shown is we haven't played around with other types of content. So let's say if I wanted to, what's a good, here's a photo of a lady that just won the lottery. So we're just going to put that up there. And this is a 2D image. This is a JPEG, I believe. But you'll notice that we treat it exactly like we would a 3D asset. It's rendered as a 3D asset, as a plane. So we can manipulate it like such and change the positioning. And if we want to come off the wall, I just take the 2 fingers again and move it away from the wall, like that. All right, so that's for 2D images. Let's try to find one that is an example for Do I have something for video? Just give me a second here. Tonic. This is one challenge that we're going to have once you have a lot of content in your library, is creating creating folders. And I'll show you guys how to do that in the last, before you leave today. So I just took a video. This is a MP4 video, right? And you'll notice that this is on a green screen. So I've actually added a green color to it, the background. And the reason for is that if I select the video and I go into the asset settings panel, there's a new video transparency setting that appears because this is a video. I can make it transparent. And by default, it's going to pick a color. You can use the hex code. So the color could be blue, yellow, whatever color you like. You just have to declare it here. And then what you can do is press save. And now you have a transparent video that's playing. So this is a great way to create interactive murals. Right now, we don't have a way to control video playback. It just loops in the video, but that's something that's coming very soon. And like before, what we can do is give this a behavior. So we can say, on user tap, we can change the animated robot to do the robot idle animation. So add that behavior, right? Now, once again, I have to go to preview to make it work. You tap on that, and then the robot just idles, right? And if you want to change them back, go into GEIST, select the robot, select the trigger on user tap. Oh yeah, change the playback, and the ready robot, and thumbs up, right? So now we can go back to preview. I tap on the robot. All right, so that's pretty much it. Oh, last thing, audio. You go to assets. We can actually place audio, spatial audio. Our system, ELYSIUM, supports spatial audio. So what we can do is, let me find audio here. I should have organized this before I would be doing this setup. So I can take a file, so take out MP3, and you just treat it like any object. You just place it on the ground, on a surface. And what happens is that it's rendered as a little speaker. You can change the size of the speaker. It doesn't actually do anything. But once you select it, you can then tap on the asset panel and change the volume. There's a volume here, so by default it's a maximum volume. But if you change it to a smaller volume, you guys probably can't hear it right now, but because I changed it to a smaller, because I changed it to a smaller volume, I no longer hear the sound. But if I approach it, the sound starts playing. So once again, if we go into preview, the speaker disappears because audio doesn't have any physical reference. But the idea is that I don't. No, just don't worry about it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is select the assets and you can move the audio around. So for example, if I wanted this audio to be with the robot, I can just put it in his head, and the audio is going to come from the robot. So that means that if I walk away, the audio is going to be softer, but when I get closer, it's going to become louder. Once again, if I put preview, audio disappears, and all of the interactions are the same. So I can hide this audio on initialization. I can trigger the audio to appear when things are touched or interacted with. So there's a lot of whatever I want to do with the GEIST. I can also the audio also has a perimeter, so I can set the trigger on object approach to do something else. So additively, we can add these interactions together to create something very, very rich. Okay, so right now, for example, we're going to say assets, audio, I'm going to make it hidden on initialization. I'll save that. And then I'll make it also a thing that if I tap on the robot, I can make the audio appear, right? So find the audio file, I'll make it, give it a transition, add behavior, right? And so now, if I leave and I come back, the audio is going to be hidden, will only play if I tap on the robot. Okay, finally, the last tab that we need to kind of look over is the settings tab. So this is like the global settings for the scene. Pathfinding only link. So this toggles the behavior of that I mentioned before of seeing only assets related to the node that's active and adjacent scenes. Add GEIST actions, playback GEIST actions. So this is basically the ability to change your your creation the settings when you're in the creator mode. There's also the key thing here is the ability to back up a scene. So right now, if you want to save everything that we've done to date, our system automatically saves things as you create. But if you want to back something up manually, you can tap on this, and then you can just save it onto your device. You save it to files, and I can save it onto my iPad. And then when we leave, that's where we can go into the scene, right? I can edit the scene settings. I can go into backup and restore. I can restore from backup and find that location on my device. Okay, last thing we're going to look at here in the scene editor is now that we've created a bunch of markers, they'll show up here on our markers panel. This is all what the machine sees, the images that we've taken. But as you see, they're not that great. We can replace these with images that we take with a nicer camera, for example, or things that are more centered, edited. What that's going to do is that we're going to select one of these to tell us what the user is going to look for when they first enter the scene, right? So the idea here is that when you, as a player, and we'll go through this, you are first presented with the scene information, and you decide to go into that scene. You'll be, asked, are you at that location? If not, you have an option of opening a map application, getting directions how to get there. If you're on location, you'll be able to enter AR. You'll be presented with the instructions page first. And then once after that, within AR, you'll be presented with a marker hint, which tells you you're at this place, look for this image first to start your experience. So we've checked the second image, and we'll leave it at that for now. And we're also going to publish the scene. We're going to change the visibility. You saw that the world is published. We're going to publish this now. And you'll see that status has changed at the top left. And then what we can do, now that it's published, it tells us we have published, we have 7 objects, we have 4 markers, there's interactivity. The share button is available. We can tap on this and share. And if I open it up, that share button home, this is the page that's automatically generated. So this is where the details, the description is. From here, we have a gallery of images that we showed. We have the option to download the app. There's a map that shows where the location is. And if I have the app downloaded, this button says View an App. I can tap on that, and a share page will open up. Right. So then we can open in Maps to give us directions how to get there. Right. You can also choose Google Maps if you like, but the principle remains the same. And then when we're ready, we can say launch inside the AR building, right? So right now, because we're logged in, it doesn't do that, but we're going to log out now. I'm going to log out. And so now you'll see that there's a scene that's been published inside the Alcam building. I can tap on that, right? And this is the instructions page. And close that. And it's going to go into AR. going to tell us what we need to look for in the scene. So I'm going to find this marker. As soon as I do, all the elements will appear. And so will the heart eventually. I don't know if you can see it from here. But basically what we can do now is I tap on the little astronaut. Once again, the guy freezes. I tap on him, the audio plays, can approach, right? And let's go back to the initial node. Oh, the skull is there. I can tap on the skull, make the heart appear. I'll walk into the heart. It's going to stop. Oh, does it stop? Oh, wait, is it? No, it was tapping that made it stop. Walking into it made it go. Okay, and also the one thing in player mode at the top right, you'll see this photo button. You can take a photo, save the image to your device. The bottom, you can start a report if you see something, or if you see something that doesn't work. Um, that's pretty much the player experience. So once again, we select on certain things. You'll see information about it. You'll see some of the images. Once you can see below, the image gallery supports GIFs, which is super fun. And that's it. So if I go back to login, right? So we're back into the my scenes. I'm gonna go into the demo world again. Open this. And then we're going to also open up this other scene that I created, right? So you'll see, because this scene isn't active, isn't published, you can't share it, right? So I'm going to edit this. I'm going to publish this now. Go to visibility, publish this, right? And then I'm going to share this. Open up in Chrome, different location. And so now we're going to go walk outside and go to this location and see, understand the fact that in a world you can have multiple scenes. Once again, and within a single scene, you can have multiple nodes. So you can easily imagine how this whole thing becomes an interactive world that you're building. GEIST right now, all the interactions are localized to a scene, but in an upcoming version, upcoming build, we'll be able to make interactions extend beyond scenes. So what I do in one scene can affect the state of another scene, for example. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to view this outdoor scene, right? So I'm at the entrance. Because I'm technically not inside, localizing inside the entrance, I can't enter it, but I'm going to open up the maps, right? So hopefully it's going to relocate now because I'm on cellular instead of Wi-Fi, right? And I can go back to the app. So now I'm inside. I can enter the building, right? Entrance. And then here, we've got a marker that's on this side. And that's it, right? Add an asset. This cat. There we go. Yeah, something weird happened there with the switch over between Wi-Fi and cellular data. Something to consider when you're trying to get people to use this, for example. Okay. All right. So I think that basically concludes the Speedrun demo. The only thing that is missing that I have yet to show everybody is our point system. So what makes our Elysium unique is that we designed to build interactive game worlds fully without any code. So what we just walked through in creating scenes, creating multiple scenes, creating multiple nodes is what we call persistence of worlds. You just place something in a location and it just stays there. It knows where it is. Once it's published, it'll always be available to the public, right? The next step is what we call persistence of experience. What that means is that we can track users and how they've interacted with things. And the most simplest way to demonstrate this is by we created a point system. So if I tap on these three dots at the top of the scene page, we have something what we call traces. I can tap on this, and here in traces, we actually declare points or values. So right now, there's no trace project-wide. So this is trace. This is a point system that follows you across the entire world versus points that are specific to specific scenes. The key thing to keep in mind here and remember is that these are values that are specific to you as a specific user. So me as a player, as a user in the specific world that somebody else has created, perhaps, I have a value in that world. Right? Our vision for something like this is eventually that they almost become points that you can trade between different worlds that you go to eventually. So right now, for a creator, you tap on this plus button up top, and you can start creating variables. So you can say points, and then this is what the user sees. They see coins, and then we can set an initial value at 10, right? And then just add trace, right? So now this has become a variable that is active, is something that we can manipulate through the GEIST interactions. So if we go back to the inside of the building, right? So go back to the skull and you see the robots appear, right? We go to preview, select GEIST, new behavior. I'm going to say on user tap, set trace, right? So we picked the variable that we created, so it says points. We can make it increment, decrement, set the specific variable, or even toggle it if it's a Boolean variable. We're going to increase the value by 10, right? So I'm going to add this behavior. So now if I go back to, oh, hang on, cancel, you'll see that we have add points. It's going to show the heart and whatnot. So what I'm going to do now is going to preview this, tap away from it to get rid of the lines. I'm going to tap on the skull. Heart's going to appear. You'll see the coins. There's a coin value at the bottom. Now if I keep tapping on this, it's just going to keep going up. I keep tapping on the skull, it just keeps going up. Okay, now I'm going to leave. Go back into the same scene again. Right? Regenerate everything. You'll see that the points have been maintained. Right? So it knows my interaction history in that space. So think of it as cookies for a website. Right now we have cookies for real world interactions. And what we're really looking to do at some point is extend that function to be able to create game states, right? Our objective in general is to create a whole platform that allows anybody to drag and drop things to create interactive games for the real world, for AR, quite easily. And the power of what we've done with the GEIST engine Right now we have points. Guess what? If you have an existing video game, we can plug those points into your existing video game so updates your online profile, for example. So we imagine this as being something that's very powerful, very exciting for people that are developing, mobile games, for instance, something that people can do easily, and more importantly, something that you can involve players in creation, in content creation. Okay, I think that's the end. I think we've gone through pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. There are still a few bugs and things, and as we roll out the new builds, we'll be going over that. As you see, sometimes when I'm recording, broadcasting this video, it's crashing. So one thing that we're definitely going to be looking into in the future is improving performance. As you see, it works pretty well, but there's a lot of performance optimization to be done before we're ready for a public beta. And that's kind of where we want your feedback for us to understand what's missing, what works, what doesn't for you. And, in the coming weeks, we'll be rolling out a roadmap with added features and documenting all this online so that you'll be able to track this and follow along. But for today, I think that should be good. If you have any questions, I invite you to just contact me directly on our Discord channel and bring up ideas and issues. We hope to maintain a very active community there where my team and I will continue to be in contact, be in touch, and connect with you guys to address any issues that might come up. And let me just open this, stop sharing. And I want to thank you for joining us so far. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today and also on this incredible journey where we started building democratized AR tools for anybody, right? If you guys are ever up in Montreal, or if you are in Montreal, we'll be hosting a series of workshops over the next 6 months. These are in-person workshops that we want to invite all of you to. And what we'll be doing is kind of what we did today, is start coming up with ideas to build interactive worlds. We have a few initiatives we're going to be excited to talk about on the Discord channel over the next few weeks. And as always, we're open to ideas, open to what we should be building next, but also talking to you guys to see what you think and how you think you might be able to use our tools. This is something unique. So for now, we're going to sign off. Thanks everybody for attending. And if you have any questions, once again, reach out to us on Discord. Thanks.